September 2nd, 1943. 27,000 feet above Naples, Italy. Oberleutnant Franz Schieß of Jagdgeschwader 53 banked his Messerschmitt Bf 109 sharply, scanning the skies for his favorite prey. As one of the Luftwaffe's most accomplished lightning killers, with 7 American P-38 fighters to his credit, Schieß had developed a reputation for hunting the distinctive twin-boom American fighter. The large twin-boom fighter presents a perfect target, Schieß had explained just days earlier. They are slow to roll, vulnerable from behind, and when hit properly, burn easily. Below, Lieutenant William J. Dixie Sloan of the 82nd Fighter Group had also spotted his opponent. Unlike many American pilots flying the Lightning, Sloan was a veteran with 11 confirmed kills. He understood precisely what the Messerschmitt pilot intended, and how to turn the Germans' confidence into a fatal mistake. The encounter that followed would upend conventional wisdom about the P-38's capabilities and mark a turning point in the air war over Italy. The P-38 Lightning began in 1937 when the United States Army Air Corps issued specifications for a high-altitude interceptor aircraft. While most manufacturers proposed conventional single-engine designs, Lockheed engineer Kelly Johnson designed something radical: a twin-engine, twin-boom fighter with a central nacelle for the pilot. The requirements couldn't be met with a conventional design, Johnson later wrote. We needed 2 engines to get the power and a radical configuration to handle that power efficiently. When the prototype first flew on January 27, 1939, it reached 414 miles per hour, shattering speed records. Despite its promise, the Lightning was complex to manufacture, requiring nearly triple the man-hours of conventional fighters. The P-38 that reached combat featured 2 Allison V1710 engines producing 1,425 horsepower each, counter-rotating propellers, and a concentrated battery of 4 50-caliber machine guns and 1 20mm cannon in the nose. The Germans, meanwhile, had developed their Messerschmitt Bf 109 along very different lines, emphasizing simplicity, ease of manufacture, and evolutionary improvement. By 1943, the Bf 109G variant featured a supercharged engine producing nearly 1,500 horsepower, 2 20mm cannon, and 2 machine guns. More importantly, the Bf 109 could be produced in enormous numbers. A 109 required approximately 4,000 man-hours to build, compared to 13,000 for the P-38. German factories could produce 5 109s for every Lightning that rolled off American assembly lines. When veteran Luftwaffe pilots first encountered the P-38 in combat over North Africa in late 1942, their initial reaction was dismissive. On November 28, 1942, pilots from JG-53 claimed 7 P-38s shot down without a single loss of their own. It was immediately apparent that this twin-engine fighter could not turn with our 109s, wrote Johannes Steinhoff, commander of JG-77, in his post-war memoirs. We quickly developed tactics to exploit this weakness. What the Germans didn't realize was that the Americans were learning, adapting, and, most importantly, building. At Lockheed's massive Burbank factory, production of the Lightning was accelerating at a pace that would have seemed impossible just years earlier. By mid-1943, Lockheed was completing a new P-38 Lightning every 4.5 hours, 250 per month. This production miracle wasn't limited to Lockheed. By 1943, the United States was producing more military aircraft than all other combatant nations combined. In that year alone, American factories built nearly 86,000 aircraft of all types, compared to Germany's 25,000. Colonel Ernst Leicht, a Luftwaffe intelligence officer captured in Italy in late 1943, summarized this reality in his interrogation. For every fighter we shoot down, the Americans can build 3 more. For every pilot we kill, they can train 5 replacements. These are not tactics we can overcome with skill alone. Meanwhile, P-38 pilots were rapidly developing new tactics to counter German advantages. Colonel Hubert Zemke recognized that Lightning pilots were attempting to fight according to conventional wisdom rather than leveraging the aircraft's unique strengths. "The P-38 is not a dogfighter," Zemke wrote in Tactical Guidance. "It will not outmaneuver a 109 in a turning contest, but it has advantages that, properly employed, make it lethal: superior high-altitude performance, exceptional dive speed, and concentrated firepower." Zemke developed what became known as the Zemke Fan, a tactical formation that spread fighters across a wide front at high altitude, allowing them to spot enemy aircraft below and make coordinated diving attacks. Instead of turning with the nimble German fighters, P-38 pilots would make a single, devastating firing pass, then climb back to altitude using their superior power-to-weight ratio. By spring 1943, P-38 units were adopting these tactics with increasingly effective results. On April 5th, 26 P-38s of the 82nd Fighter Group intercepted a formation of 70 German transport aircraft, escorted by 30 fighters. In the ensuing battle, American pilots claimed 31 enemy aircraft destroyed against a loss of just 6 Lightnings. German pilots began to reassess their opinion of the American twin-engine fighter. Herbert Kaiser, a Luftwaffe ace with 28 victories, wrote after being shot down by a P-38 in May 1943. "The Lightning must be respected as a formidable opponent. It is faster and more maneuverable than our Bf-109 G6, especially since our aircraft is slowed by underwing cannon pods." By summer 1943, the Lightning had established itself as a serious threat, but many German pilots still believed they held the overall advantage in fighter-versus-fighter combat. This confidence would soon be tested as the Allied invasion of Sicily and then the Italian mainland brought increasingly intense air battles. July 10, 1943, marked the beginning of Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily. The Lightning's exceptional range proved particularly valuable during the invasion. It was the only Allied fighter that could remain over the invasion beaches for extended periods, with pilots reporting mission durations of over 5 hours. "We would arrive over the beaches as the Spitfires were leaving for lack of fuel," recalled Captain Richard Jonas of the 82nd Fighter Group. "Then we'd stay another hour or more. The troops below called us the twin-tailed guardian angels." As the Sicily campaign progressed, the 3 P-38 groups encountered increasingly desperate resistance from the Luftwaffe. Elements of several Jagdgeschwader, including JG-53, were transferred to airfields around Naples. These units included some of the Luftwaffe's most experienced fighter pilots. Among them was Oberleutnant Franz Schieß, who had arrived in Italy in late July, with 62 victories to his credit. Within his first 2 weeks of operations over Sicily, Schieß had added 5 more kills, all P-38s, earning him recognition as the Luftwaffe's leading Lightning killer. On August 30th, the increasingly fierce aerial combat reached a climax when German and Italian fighters shot down 13 P-38s that were escorting B-26 and B-17 bombers on raids against targets in Italy. This was one of the heaviest single-day losses for P-38 units in the Mediterranean theater. Luftwaffe intelligence reports from this period, captured after the war, reveal a dangerous overconfidence. American twin-engine fighters are proving particularly vulnerable to our experienced pilots. Their size makes them easy to spot. Their maneuverability is inferior, and when hit, they burn readily due to their large fuel capacity. This assessment failed to account for two critical factors: the continuing improvement in American tactics and the relentless mathematics of attrition. By September 1, 1943, the three P-38 groups in the Mediterranean had received significant reinforcements. Despite their losses, they maintained a combined strength of approximately 180 aircraft. JG-53, meanwhile, was struggling to maintain effective strength with only 36 operational Bf-109s. As Allied forces prepared to invade the Italian mainland at Salerno, massive air operations were planned. September 2nd would see intensive bombing raids against airfields and transportation hubs around Naples, escorted by all available Allied fighters. For the 82nd Fighter Group, the morning mission called for 32 P-38s to escort B-17 bombers targeting the rail yards at Naples. Lieutenant William "Dixie" Sloan would be flying as element leader in the 2nd Squadron, a position he had earned through 11 confirmed victories. Sloan had become one of the group's most successful pilots by rigorously applying the boom and zoom tactics that played to the Lightning's strengths. "I never try to turn with a 109, he explained to new replacement pilots. "I make one pass, climb away, and come back when I have the advantage again." On the German side, Oberleutnant Franz Schieß prepared for what would be his final mission. As one of JG-53's most experienced pilots, he would lead a staffel of 12 Bf-109s to intercept the expected American bomber formation. At 0600 hours, September 2nd, 1943, the first P-38s of the 82nd Fighter Group began taking off from their dust-covered airstrip near Syracuse, Sicily. The distinctive rumble of 32 Allison engines shattered the dawn stillness as the Lightnings climbed into the clear Mediterranean sky. Lieutenant William Sloan's P-38, nicknamed Dixie's Delight, with 8 small swastikas and 3 Italian aircraft silhouettes painted beneath the cockpit, lifted off in the second flight. As he retracted his landing gear and settled into formation, Sloan ran through his pre-flight checks with methodical precision. 60 miles to the north, at a Luftwaffe airfield near Naples, Oberleutnant Franz Schieß was completing his own preparations. His Bf-109 G6, bearing the distinctive black tulip pattern on its nose that marked JG-53's aircraft, had been meticulously prepared by his ground crew. "The Americans will come between 0800 and 0900 hours, Schieß told his wingman, Feldwebel Kurt Wagner. "Stay close to me. The P-38s are dangerous if they catch you alone. We attack in pairs, always." By 0730, the P-38s had joined with their bomber formation, 24 B-17 Flying Fortresses from the 97th Bomb Group. The massive formation turned northward, crossing the Italian coast near Calabria as they began the final leg to their target. "Bandits at 2 o'clock high." The radio call came just as the formation approached the outskirts of Naples. Sloan looked up to see the distinctive silhouettes of Bf-109s diving from above, their approach perfectly positioned with the morning sun at their backs. A classic Luftwaffe tactic. Colonel Clayton Bissell, commanding the 82nd, made an instantaneous decision. Blue flight, stay with the bombers. Red and white flights, climb to engage. Sloan, part of red flight, pushed his throttles to war emergency power. The twin Allisons responded immediately, sending his Lightning climbing toward the diving German fighters. What followed was a swirling, chaotic air battle that spread across 5,000 feet of altitude. The German tactic of diving through the formation had partially succeeded, with several Messerschmitts breaking through to the bombers. But 16 P-38s, including Sloan's flight, had successfully intercepted the main German force. Oberleutnant Schieß had spotted a lone P-38 that had become separated from its squadron. Banking sharply, he positioned his Messerschmitt behind the American fighter, his experienced eyes judging the deflection shot perfectly. His cannon barked, sending 20mm shells toward the Lightning's center section. But the P-38 pilot had seen him coming. With a rapid roll and pull, the American executed a maneuver that Schieß had never seen a Lightning perform. A high-speed barrel roll that simultaneously changed direction and altitude. The Germans' cannon shells passed harmlessly through empty air. "Schnell!" Schieß called to his wingman as he attempted to reposition for another attack. But as he banked, he momentarily lost sight of another P-38 that had climbed above the melee. It was Sloan's Lightning. Having climbed to 30,000 feet, he had spotted Schieß's distinctive black-nosed Messerschmitt below. Now he pushed forward on the control yoke, sending his P-38 into a steep dive, airspeed building rapidly past 400 miles per hour. The improved dive flaps on Sloan's P-38J model prevented the compressibility problems that had plagued earlier versions. He maintained perfect control as he lined up his shot, the pipper of his gun sight settling on the Messerschmitt's engine cowling. Schieß never saw the attack coming. The first indication of danger was the sound of 50 caliber rounds tearing through his aircraft's aluminum skin. Sloan's 4 machine guns and 20mm cannon concentrated their fire precisely on the Messerschmitt's engine and cockpit area. The German fighter's engine erupted in flames immediately. Schieß, wounded by shrapnel, struggled to open his canopy as his aircraft began to spiral downward. Witnesses later reported seeing a parachute deploy, but it appeared damaged, opening only partially before the German pilot disappeared into the clouds below. The remaining German fighters, having lost their leader and facing determined resistance from the Lightning pilots, broke off the engagement and returned to their base. The American bombers completed their attack on the Naples rail yards, their defensive gunners claiming 2 additional Messerschmitts. When the 82nd Fighter Group landed back at their Sicilian base, the final tally was remarkable. 4 Bf-109s confirmed destroyed, including Schieß's, for the loss of just 1 P-38. For the first time in the Mediterranean theater, the kill ratio had decisively favored the Lightning in a major engagement with German fighters. News of Schieß's loss spread quickly through Luftwaffe units in Italy. The psychological impact was profound. If their top Lightning killer could fall to a P-38, what chance did average pilots have? "The Americans are changing their tactics," wrote Hauptmann Werner Schröer, commanding the 3rd, JG-3, in a report to Luftwaffe headquarters. The P-38s no longer attempt to dogfight. They stay high, dive to attack, then climb away. Our usual tactics are becoming less effective against this approach. German intelligence reports captured after the war reveal a growing concern about both the improved Lightning tactics and the sheer numbers being deployed. A September 15, 1943 assessment noted, "American twin-engine fighter strength continues to increase despite our efforts. For every P-38 we destroy, 3 more arrive from Sicily. We are now facing approximately 150 such aircraft operating over Italy, with more arriving weekly." This assessment was actually conservative. By mid-September, the 3 American P-38 groups in the Mediterranean had a combined strength of over 200 aircraft. More importantly, replacement pilots were arriving with better training in the boom and zoom tactics that had proven so effective against the Luftwaffe's Messerschmitts. The industrial disparity became increasingly apparent as the campaign for Italy progressed. While Lockheed was producing nearly 300 P-38s per month by late 1943, Germany's entire fighter production averaged approximately 1,000 aircraft monthly, spread across multiple types. Even more critical was the difference in pilot training and survival. American pilots who were shot down over Italy often landed in Allied-controlled territory and returned to their units. German pilots who parachuted over enemy territory became prisoners of war. This created a steady drain on the Luftwaffe's most precious resource: experienced pilots. General der Jagdflieger Adolf Galland, who had initially dismissed the P-38, now warned of its growing threat. We must recognize that the Lightning, while not our equal in maneuverability, has advantages of altitude performance, diving speed, and concentrated firepower that make it extremely dangerous when properly employed. Most concerning is their increasing numerical superiority. Our pilots now face odds of 3 or 4 to 1 in most engagements. The September 2nd combat that claimed Oberleutnant Schieß marked a turning point in the air war over Italy. While individual Luftwaffe pilots would continue to score victories against P-38s, the overall balance had shifted decisively. By October 1943, Luftwaffe units in Italy were increasingly forced to avoid combat, except under the most favorable circumstances. During the Allied landings at Salerno on September 9th, P-38s provided continuous air cover over the beaches, their long range allowing them to remain on station for up to 5 hours. German attempts to attack the invasion fleet were repeatedly broken up by the patrolling Lightnings before they could reach their targets. The September 2nd engagement that claimed Schieß had demonstrated the core truth that would eventually determine the air war's outcome. German tactical expertise, while impressive, could not overcome American industrial might, combined with rapidly improving combat tactics. The Luftwaffe was being ground down by attrition, unable to replace aircraft and pilots at the rate they were being lost. This mathematical reality was starkly illustrated in the subsequent weeks. Between September 2nd and October 15th, the 3 P-38 groups in the Mediterranean claimed 67 Luftwaffe aircraft destroyed while losing 29 of their own. But while American losses were quickly replaced, German squadrons grew steadily weaker. By November 1943, Luftwaffe strength in Italy had declined to approximately 120 operational fighters spread across 4 Jagdgeschwader. Against them, the Allies could deploy over 500 fighters, including more than 200 P-38s. The once feared Luftwaffe was being reduced to an ancillary threat. For Lieutenant William Dixie Sloan, who had shot down Franz Schieß, the air victory on September 2nd was his 12th kill. He would go on to claim a total of 15 confirmed victories before being transferred back to the United States in December 1943 to train new P-38 pilots in the tactics he had helped develop. Schieß himself survived the encounter, though badly wounded, after his partially opened parachute brought him to ground in Italian territory. He was captured by Allied forces and spent the remainder of the war as a prisoner. After repatriation to Germany in 1946, he would occasionally speak of the engagement that ended his combat career, acknowledging that the Luftwaffe had underestimated both the P-38 and American adaptability. "We thought the Lightning was a flawed design," he told a gathering of former Luftwaffe pilots in 1956. "We were wrong. It was actually a brilliant design for its purpose: long-range escort and high-altitude interception. We mistook complexity for weakness. By the time we recognized our error, it was too late." The P-38 Lightning would continue to serve throughout the Mediterranean theater until the end of the war. Its distinctive silhouette became a feared sight for German pilots and a welcome one for Allied ground troops, who knew that the twin-boomed fighter overhead meant protection from Luftwaffe attack. In total, P-38 pilots in the Mediterranean claimed over 700 enemy aircraft destroyed, with the highest success rates coming after the tactical innovations of mid-1943. But perhaps the Lightning's greatest contribution was more fundamental. It helped break the Luftwaffe's ability to contest air superiority over Italy. allowing Allied ground forces to advance with minimal opposition from the air. The irony was not lost on Luftwaffe veterans after the war. The aircraft they had initially mocked as ungainly and vulnerable had played a crucial role in their defeat. German ace Johannes Steinhoff, who survived the war with 176 victories, summed it up in his post-war memoirs. The P-38 was the first American fighter to truly concern us. Not because it was better than our fighters, it wasn't, but because it represented something we could not match: American industrial capacity. For every Lightning we shot down, they built 3 more. That is how wars are won. The transformation was complete. The Lightning that German pilots had once dismissed as easy prey had become the hunter, and the once dominant Luftwaffe had been reduced to desperate defensive